Now, here's my issue with this, with the digital de-aging. Okay, is it better than Rogue One? Yes, I will say that wholeheartedly. But his face was changing as he was moving. When he stood still, like when they take the bag off his head, and you see him like, holy shit, they made Harrison Ford look young, and it actually looks good. And then the minute he got up and moved, I was like, oh God, oh no. That's not good. So
it was the horrible cricking of his knees and back that took me out of it. And him.
Oh, goody, goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh, my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine.
welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Coddington, joined by fellow co-host and filmmaker, John Woolscroft.
This film is fun. I have no stress. The third act fell apart. What a goddamn mess.
Da, 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 da. Oh, this is gonna be a fun one. We're on episode 2. What are we on? It's 276.
76.
Holy shit. And kind of continuing on what seems to be just kind of like our summer movie bonanza, if you will. We're looking this week at what I really hope to God is the last Indiana Jones film, and that is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, or as John and I have called it multiple times, we've talked about it. Either what, John, you called it the dildo of destiny.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I called it the dump of destiny.
Which makes sense. I mean, it stars an octogenarian, you know.
Yeah. I don't know where the dildo would come in there. Like there wasn't, I don't know.
Well, he walks like he has a dildo up his ass because he's in his 80s.
Ah, gotcha. There you go. There you go. But yeah, like we're going to review this movie. I think the thing too is like, I was expecting to hate this movie more than I did coming out of it. John, what about you?
Yeah, I kept an open mind because I thought to myself, like, okay, John, you love the first one, you love the third one, unironically. You ironically love Temple of Doom. So don't let the fourth one just absolutely taint it. Just assume, it's going to be the fourth one all over again. This is the fifth one,
not the fourth one.
No, but I'm saying when I saw the fourth one, how bad it was.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, don't let the fourth one taint you. Like, try to go in with your good memories of Indiana Jones. Like, try to give it a clean slate. And for the longest time in this movie, I did have a pretty good time. And I was like, I think this is going to be a really good Indiana Jones movie. And then it just kind of fell apart, you know.
It just kind of went like, hey, by the way, you know what it's like? It's like that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark when Belloc opens the Ark and he's all like, it's beautiful. Look how beautiful it is. Everything's great. And then you hear that music turn, tent, 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 and then it turns into a skull and everyone gets like their faces melted and heads blowed up and all the Nazis die. And you have Indy screaming, don't look at it.
I thought that was going to be, you know, the kind of the ending for this movie. And I know spoilers right off the bat for everybody.
Yeah, right off the bat.
I thought when they were in the plane, and don't worry, we'll describe the movie if you haven't seen it. But when they're in the plane at the end, and then he's like, continental drift. They didn't count on that. We don't know where we're going, but it's not Nazi Germany. I thought it was going to be kind of like a Raiders End where like it didn't actually time travel and everybody except somehow Indy dies a horrific death like they did in most of these movies. I did not think they were actually going to go to like a Roman war in 86 BC.
The minute they went into the butthole in the sky, which that's what I'm calling it, the butthole in the sky. And they queefed out. I immediately saw like the Roman triremes. I'm just like, what? How?
At least they went full batshit though. You got to give them that.
I mean, it would have. I thought it would have been hilarious if like they came out of the butthole in the sky and they just crashed into a mountain Like the mountain. Shit, it could have been the mountain from Temple of Doom. like you see that plane crash in Temple of Doom, and we always thought, oh my god, well that's clearly the one that they jumped out of in the inflatable raft. But no, that was the plane from this movie. I think I just wrote a better ending. Yeah, I mean, I think I brought this up last time when we talked about the summer of '89, and it's something that I've noticed that has become honestly really just bad, and that is just film reviewers just dumping on everything. Like, have you noticed that too with YouTubers, especially just dumping on? Because I saw a lot of hate with this movie.
It's this, and movie franchises like this and Star Wars, like it's almost like, well, I know why they make them cha-ching, well, except for really
I get
this
that
one, but you're never going to please the audience. Everybody already has the movies in their head that you're gonna let everyone down, from the trolls to the loyalist fans to the casual fans. Like, there's no way that you're not going to disappoint at least 75% of the audience, no matter what you do. I mean, look at the Force Awakens. Like, they played it safe. They just made New Hope again, and half the people liked it, and the other half were like, "It's just New Hope again. You guys don't have any imagination." And then they went, "Okay, let's go fucking batshit crazy with Last Jedi," and they went, "This isn't Star Wars. You guys went too far." So you're never. It's almost too big. There's almost that term in like franchise, like too big to fail. I think sometimes these movie franchises can get too big to succeed.
Yeah, but like I've just noticed that, especially with this one, like, don't get me wrong, I think that there's criticism abound for this one. I think there is.
There's tons.
But
yeah,
like man, I have seen some really just nasty level reviews of this movie. Like, there's one that says Disney is failing, that's a good thing, and it's got a picture of Kathleen Kennedy, and it's about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Not Last Crusade, but this one's panicking, and it's like a nasty picture. You got one that also has like, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny pitch meeting, and it's Harrison Ford with googly eyes on his face. It just seems like there's the level of being able to be objective when it comes to reviewing a movie, and just being an outright fucking dick just seems to be like shifting, where we're now seeing more just being a fucking dick.
Well, I think the Kathleen Kennedy stuff comes from sexist trolls, Yeah,
and don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not a Kathleen Kennedy fan, but because I can see that there are issues, but at the same time, like, do they not realize that Kathleen Kennedy was involved in just about every Indiana Jones movie?
Every Star Wars movie.
Every Star Wars movie?
Yeah, did you like Empire? Because she was involved.
She was involved. Like, that's the thing. But like, man, like, you've got one that says Indiana Jones 5 is a crime against cinema. Like, that's the title.
That's a stretch.
Like, for fuck's sake, man. First of all, there are far worse movies. Have they never seen a Neil Breen film? Because those are legit crimes against cinema.
I know that, like, you and, when Lane was on the show, said, like, when I said, oh, I wanted to give the Star Wars movie a chance, you guys went, bullshit. You wanted to hate it. Like, I seriously did want to give it a shot, but I think that there are a lot of people who went to hate watch this, and there was nothing the movie could have done. They already had it in their mind they were going to hate it, and they did.
Yeah, but I mean, part of me thinks that it's almost in vogue to be a fucking dick, to be a movie reviewer. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I think, John, you and I have dickish tendencies, me
especially,
and oh yeah, you especially. But I mean, I have no problem calling out a movie and saying, like, yeah, this was fucking stupid. Why did you fucking do this? But I'm not going to hate watch every single movie that I see. I'm not going to hate watch every single summer blockbuster because it's already guilty by being a summer blockbuster. Like, that doesn't seem fair. I try to give every movie that I see equal merit and kind of judge it off of that. Now, and that even goes for, Sir Neil Breen. The only problem is that Sir Neil Breen has disappointed me every single time. So,
but Brian, like a movie that came out earlier this summer, like just pretending that one in this world, the royal one, has all the time in the world and movies don't cost any money. I still wouldn't have seen the new Transformers movie because I know that there is no way that I would have liked it. So even if all the stars aligned, I still wouldn't have gone to see it. So I agree with you. I don't know why people would go to a movie they know that they're gonna hate. Like,
I'm not gonna go.
That's what rentals are for.
Like John, I am not gonna ever, and I mean this, ever see Fast X. I have no desire at all to see any of them, let alone Fast X.
I guess you don't care about family.
No, I don't. I don't care. I don't fucking care about Vin Diesel and his drama with The Rock and all sorts of bullshit. I don't care about it. Okay? So I'm not going to go see it, and it's just something that, like, maybe it's a problem where people didn't ask for this movie. You know what I mean? Like, maybe that's part of it, is that this was not something that we were just saying, oh yes, that is what we need, is another Indiana Jones movie.
Disney looked at their stockpile of franchises they had, and they were flipping them back and forth. Like, Ant-Man, we're making those right now. Yeah. X-Men, pretty soon. We got a lot of time. And they looked at Indiana Jones, and they go, hey, wait, is Harrison Ford dead? They went, no, he's still alive, but he's in his 80s. They went, oh, shit, we have no choice. We got to make this now before Harrison Ford fucking dies.
Yeah. And well, so, I think there may have been, to some degree, kind of a understanding that maybe Crystal Skull was not a good send-off for the character, and that, the one thing that really a lot of us all wanted to see was Harrison Ford punching Nazis, which I got news for some people. Nazis are still the bad guys. 3 out of 5 movies. Well, I'm not just saying in movie land. I'm talking about in reality.
Yeah, the weird thing is
that's sad. I have to say that.
Well, it did seem like, because of the culture that we live in, where Nazis are back, like the first and third movie, it kind of seemed like Indiana Jones was like, he didn't like the Nazis, but he was more like focused on the adventure and getting his art. I don't like
these guys. Like, well, why is it, Harrison? I don't know. They don't like them.
But in this one, he's like, why aren't you staying a pulling, you Nazi dick-sucking scum? It's like, oh, wow, Indy really hates these Nazis. I wonder what that is in reference to.
Why is that an important piece of dialogue that some writer felt it was necessary to point out?
He's like in his class. He's like, before my lecture today, the day we found out Adolf Hitler died, I jacked off 6 times. It's, okay, Indy. Sure.
Yeah. It's like, okay, everyone here came in and pissed on the Nazi skull that I smuggled back from Germany, right?
Yeah.
Everyone did that when they came in the classroom, right? You all pissed and spat on the skull.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Will that be on the final?
Talk more about Archimedes. So yeah, I mean, it was important to put that out, but I just think that they realized that Crystal Skull was not the send-off they wanted, and felt like, all right, well, let's see what else we could do. Steven doesn't want to do this fucking thing anymore. So let's see if we can get James Marigold in it, right?
Well, he's good. I mean,
he's good. He did Logan. We both love Logan.
I love it's one of my favorite superhero films of all time.
Yeah.
Top 5.
Yeah, I know. I loved Logan. I thought it was great. I thought, I don't see that as a superhero movie. I think we even said that when we did our review of it, that Logan is more of a movie with
it's a depression
characters.
Western with superpowers in it.
Yeah. But that James Mangold, sorry, excuse me, not Marigold. I don't know why I said that. But
you made him prettier though. Marigold.
Made him prettier. Now I will say that the one thing that I really disliked in this movie was Boyd Holbrook, who's in this again, because he was a bad guy in Logan, and he was a bad guy in this one too.
Wait, Hannibal Lecter?
No.
What's that guy's name?
The skinny Nazi guy, the henchman with the mustache.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he was the main villain in Logan. Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were talking about the
Well, he
main
wasn't even the
villain in
main
this
villain. He was like, again, henchman number 1 in Logan with the mechanical hand.
Yeah.
And then in this one, he's henchman number 1 with the Nazi coif and mustache.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Though I do get why this movie did go back to the Nazi fountain, so to speak.
Yeah.
That sounds like an Indiana Jones movie. Indiana Jones and the Nazi fountain.
Oh man, that would have been a good one.
It's in like Brazil. It's like, if we drop this artifact in here, all the dead corpses of the Nazis will rise again. Zombies. I hate zombies.
Almost as much as snakes and eels.
But the fact of the matter is, our American history is riddled with like black spots of working with Nazis. Our space program was built on the Nazis, like von Braun.
Yep.
So like, it's not surprising that the movie is going to like tackle, even in a background sense, space travel. That the Nazis are gonna still be a part of this story.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta say, like, trying to weave in those elements, because that's one thing that's always been really good with Indiana Jones movies, is that they've tried to weave in contemporary elements, from our history. And that, as you said, John, that really is kind of the only way you could kind of make a Nazi survive into the 60s, right? Is that they were instrumental in the space program. And this particular Nazi, played by Hannibal Lecter, also
yes. Yeah. That's who I was looking for.
Yeah, Hannibal Lecter. Everyone's favorite evil man.
Wish.com Hannibal Lecter, TV Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, TV's Hannibal Lecter. Mads Mikkelsen, probably butchering his name. Also the villain from he was Le Chief. Remember Le Chief from James Bond with the bloody eye?
Yep, Casino Royale.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been around.
He's just built for villainy.
He's got that look about it. He's probably like the nicest guy in the world, but
he probably is.
Yeah.
Like, he's probably got kittens and like, dogs all around his house, and he probably has like unicorns. Like, he has a room just unicorns. And he's probably just like, I don't know why people keep giving me all these villain roles, but do they not know my collection of unicorns I have? Which I think that would be great. But yeah, like, the only way they kind of keep him around is if you made him in the space program. And they did do a good job of weaving him in there. And you even have like the CIA who's helping him out, because they're like, well, fine, we'll help you find your dial of destiny if you build us rockets for NASA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, just like, Brian, right off the bat, before we kind of go into the story, like, how do you feel about, and I'm guessing his age. I'm thinking that Indiana Jones is about 66 years old in this movie. How do you feel about 66-year-old drunken farting in his armchair, yelling at teenagers to turn their music down, where nobody listens to him or gives a shit about him anymore, and he's just like no longer relevant? How do you feel about old Indiana Jones?
I mean, well, first of all, his real age is not 66.
He's 81.
He's 81.
But in the movie, he's like 66.
In the movie, he's like 66, but it doesn't match up to me. Like, honestly, like, I'm like, damn, Indy's had some city miles if he's 66. This is what 66 looks like. Yeah. But I think it is off character to a point. Now, granted, here's the thing. We don't know what the fuck happened at the beginning when he's cranky grandpa Indy yelling at, hippies.
I mean, we don't know precisely what's happened to him, but I mean, couldn't we just gather the fact that in his 60s he'd be yelling at teenagers and not really giving it at all with his job anymore?
Well, what would have been interesting, and this is something that I think, and I don't want to denigrate James Mangold. See, I got his name right this time.
James Marigold, yeah.
Not James Marigold, it's James Mangold. But what I think might have been better is to do kind of the long take pan that you would see in movies like this. Like, do you know what I'm talking about, where you do you pan across stuff and you kind of see like what they've gone through and shit. And they tried a little bit of that, like they did in Rear Window. Back to the Future also has an extended long pan across the environment. You get an idea of kind of who the characters are and what the circumstances are. And you can clearly tell that they tried to do that or set the space up for it, but just didn't execute it. Because like you can see that there's a folded up flag, there's a picture of Mutt, but it's just like your eyes not drawn to it. You know what I mean? And I think it would have been interesting to kind of fill in the story, if you will, by like saying like, oh, here's the wedding picture from the last movie. And oh yeah, we come over here and we see like, hey, look at that, some shit that Mutt did or something like that. Mutt is Indiana Jones's son that he didn't know about, played by Shia LaBeouf from the last movie.
Yeah. So let's say Indiana Jones got into holes before Shyla did.
Yeah. So, but the thing is like, we don't know anything about what happened to them. So this would be a good time to kind of do a pan, show us all the stuff, show us what happened, and then land on cranky Indy and why he's so cranky. Because all we really get is like shot comes in, doesn't really focus on anything, it goes directly to Indy, and he just kind of, wakes up because, what was it, HR Puff and stuff was on?
Oh, it was Magical Mystery Tour.
Yes.
HR Puppets was on his TV, and then the neighbors were playing Magical Mystery Tour. That had to cost Disney a mint.
Oh, it did.
They don't care, though.
They don't give a shit. They're like, we own that.
But
you know what I mean? Like, that would have filled in some gaps.
But just the whole idea of him being elderly, like, isn't Indiana Jones more of a symbol than a character? Like, I compare him to, like, James Bond. Like, let's say that Sean Connery never wanted to leave the role. Mm-hmm. Eventually, they would have asked him to leave because he would have gotten too old. It's what happened with Roger Moore.
Yeah.
Like A View to a Kill. Like, he looked more like the father of the main woman than the love interest. So they're like, okay, we need to recast you. You got too old. James Bond is a symbol more than he is a character. And I think that holds true to some degree for Indiana Jones. And I don't know if I needed to see Indiana Jones drinking whiskey, farting in a leather chair, like, barely able to get to the bathroom because he's not continent,
I mean, I don't think that I don't think Indy is that level yet. Like, he's not like Batman. Like Batman, we've had so many different versions, so many different actors have stepped into that role that Batman is basically James Bond at this point. But Indy has always been wrapped around the persona of Harrison Ford. So I think it would be difficult to have an Indiana Jones movie without Harrison Ford in that role.
Sure, but I mean, like, what if, like, say in the late 80s, they had him ride off into the sunset when he was still young and a symbol of, like, adventure person, and they left it there?
Adventure person. Or, I mean, what about your thoughts of you started off with Indy dead?
Yeah.
We're at his funeral, and it's stuff after the fact. Like, what would your thoughts be on that?
Well, I mean, I want Indiana Jones in the Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
But so it's like, in a weird way, I think because he's so human, I kind of accepted that, like, he was kind of old and everything had fallen apart and he didn't believe in anything anymore, more than I did say like Luke Skywalker. Because that's a whole, like, I'm an old man and I don't have any reason to do anything I used to do, and I'm disenfranchised by all of it. I'm Batman. I'm Indiana Jones. I'm the Ghostbusters. I'm, Luke Skywalker. It's like, where it didn't work for Luke because I thought that was kind of more like a mythical, kind of, Joseph Campbellian.
Dealing with space magic. So,
yeah, space magic. Yeah. Indiana Jones a real dude. I could see him kind of like hitting rock bottom. But at the same time, I'm like, did I really need this? I'm almost glad it was, because it gives him some, a character arc to grow from in the movie. But like, did I need to see sad Indiana Jones who is just too broke to buy rope to hang himself with?
I didn't hate that concept as much as you did. I think it goes back to, again, John, like, did we need this movie? Was it necessary?
And the thing is, we keep saying like, oh, Disney needed it because cha-ching, but can we just do a sidebar here real quick? And can I talk about Hollywood maths?
Hollywood
here's
maths?
Math.
Oh, math.
A little bit. Yeah, mathesis. So here's kind of a breakdown on how the Hollywood system works. So this movie, for some fucking reason, cost $300 million to make.
I can guess why.
Some people are saying that the movie cost $325 million, but let's just say $300 million. Now, before we even take into the marketing costs, movie theaters don't run movies for free.
No.
So let's say in a perfect world, they're taking 50% of the ticket sales. So in order to break even, let's say this movie is not marketed at all. This movie has to make $450 million just to break even. But let's go back to the beginning. If a movie costs $300 million, you have to think that about at least half of that is being put into the marketing of the movie. So now we got another $150 million that they spent before this movie hits theaters. So now we're looking at $600 million to break even. And now let's take into consideration back end deals that movies get. Harrison Ford gets a cut of this or a cut of that, and other people have, you got to pay off Spielberg, you got to pay off Lucas. That's why their names come up like third in the credits as executive producers. So all the back end deals, you're looking at between $625 to $650 million to break even. There's no way this movie's can make money.
Well, I mean, John, movies don't reach that level anymore. They just don't. Right? Like we're still post-COVID. Like that's the thing I think people understand. Like movies are not making that crazy amount of money anymore.
So why could they spend so much? The first Indiana Jones movie I think was made for like $35 million.
Yeah.
And it's still arguably the best one. Yeah. So did you need to spend $300 million on this movie?
Probably not, but let's look at what that money was probably spent on, because I'll tell you right now what it's spent on. It's spent on different locations. Okay, think about every single time that we move to a different city in this movie. How many times does that happen?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Like probably 10. Okay, and then on top of that, you've got digitized Harrison Ford. That is not cheap.
No.
It takes a lot of artists to make those sorts of shots happen.
And it's the first 2.5 hours of this movie.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, that's the thing that I don't want to cut you off. Do you have more?
No. That's what I'm saying is there's a lot of money invested in the different locations that they're at. There's a lot of money invested in the effects because you have to make Harrison Ford look like he can still do Indiana Jones shit despite being in his 80s. Yeah. Okay. And on top of that, the style of this type of movie is fast paced. And maybe that is because James Mangold, is more of an action director rather than Spielberg.
But it's surprisingly so slow. That's what drives me so nuts about this movie. Is I think the premise is great. I think the characters are great. I think everything is there to work. But then the movie gets bogged down by an action sequence that goes about 10 to 12 minutes too long every single time. And I feel like there's so many plot points or things that are left off the table here because, if you actually handled a lot of the narrative stuff that they didn't handle, now you're looking at a 3 hour and 15-minute movie. And let's say hypothetically those are even there. Disney's going to be like, people come to Indiana Jones to watch action. They don't want character development and plot things to be resolved. So, I'm watching that first opening sequence where Indy's looking for the blade of Christ and whatever, on this Nazi artifact train, and I'm like, this is fun, this is cool. And while the voice is an 80-year-old man, I think they did pretty good with the the de-aging and stuff. Some reason 40 some I know you probably you have 40-some-year-old Indiana Jones. But
what happened to your voice?
It's the same problem I had with Rogue One. It's like, oh, Darth Vader sounds like a 90-year-old man. But anyways, but I'm thinking after a while, I'm like, is this opening sequence still going on?
Well, John, I think this is the same issue that I brought up in Rise of Skywalker. That it's really hard to question and really hard to understand the plot and understand the nuances when you've got an action scene every 5 minutes. Right? Yeah. And that's if you asked why is it $300 million to make this thing, that's why. Because you clearly don't have the idea of, can we just stop for a minute and slow down and maybe have our characters fucking talk? Yeah. Like that's the thing. Fucking talk. Well, like, there's one scene in this movie, one scene where the characters actually have a conversation of any weight. And you probably know what scene I'm talking about.
I'm trying to remember. Oh, but about the whole, like, the goddaughter and her father and the is that?
Well, I mean, no, not that one. For me, it was the boat scene where they're at night and Phoebe Waller
where Indy's talking about
talking about his son.
Yeah,
like that is the only scene in this movie where it's not a lead up to an action scene. By the way, like that's the thing too, is I'm not counting conversations that lead immediately to another action scene. I'm talking about your characters stop
and
talk about something. They have a conversation that gives you insight into the characters themselves, their backstory, their motivations for things, and why they do what they do. And there's only one of those in this movie that I could see that didn't lead up to immediately to an action scene.
Well, people said the only good scene in Suicide Squad for how terrible that movie was, like the only scene that was even remotely redeeming is when all is lost and they're all at the bar actually having conversations and there's like attempts at character development. Like, you know, it's like, oh, because there's actually a moment where their people are being people. Wow. Yeah. So I do agree with you on that, but I will say Mutt dying in Nom is just like, they're narratively, like if I'm just looking at this film, that's just garbage. It's because they needed to write Shia LaBeouf out of it. But did they? Couldn't they just say, going to be like, my son who's off in Tangier being like his old man. I haven't seen him in years. Like, do they have to kill Mutt? Because there's no resolution to that.
No. And what would have been interesting, here's a better way of being able to solve the ending of this movie, is maybe Indy does fix the timeline and does save Mutt from Vietnam. That would have been interesting. Or he doesn't and pulls a Flash.
Yeah, exactly. Like I would have liked it more if he somehow is like, I know how continental drift works, so I'm going to actually go to like where my son is about to go to Vietnam, and he has this conversation with Mutt where somehow, I don't know, I'm not the writer of the movie, but Mutt's like, you know, we have our own destinies and we have to live them out. And we have to, like, you know, we have no choice but to live the lives that like we do. And he's like, oh, I can let go of my son now, you know, and not change things. But no, it's just kind of like, nah, my son's dead, and it's because Shia LaBeouf is not really liked around here anymore.
Well, so I think it's called Shia LaBeouf pissed off Steven Spielberg, so Steven Spielberg's probably just like, fuck, kill him. Fucking kill him.
He got killed by his own man. His own man shot him in the balls, and he bled out from his balls. Okay, Steven. We might not put that in the script.
I don't think we could put that in there. He went and got Kali Ma. That's what happened.
Yeah. What if Mott went to a haunted house? Get out of here, George.
What if he got stabbed by a lightsaber? Are you serious? You're mixing your universes right now, George. Oh, okay. I'm gonna go back to the set of The Mandalorian and watch The Vault.
Is Harrison Deckard in this one? Oh my God, George! you didn't even make that one.
It's funny you bring that up. So like, here's the funny thing that I forget who I was watching on YouTube who brought up this point. Oh, you know what it was? It was the Red Letter Media guys, and they're half in the bag on Dial of Destiny.
I haven't watched that because I was afraid that it might like paint
influence.
yeah.
Well,
exactly.
I didn't watch the whole thing. I just watched a portion of it, and what they brought up was very interesting. And I got to get your take on this. So I know you didn't hate the CGI as much as I did. I didn't hate it like Flash level.
But it is what it is. You know, it's not horrible. So I kind of allow my suspension of disbelief because it's kind of cool to see him, on a Nazi train. So I just let it go. But go on.
But did you think that maybe they de-aged him too much to a age that was not appropriate for the time? Because technically this would be like 1994, 95 Harrison Ford, not Deckard Harrison Ford. And he looks very Deckard-ish in this.
Well, see, so I don't know if there is like a wiki that gives because I didn't check if there was that gives the actual birth date of Indiana Jones, but I'm guessing. And for all those that are listening that know the exact date he was born, I apologize, but I'm just guessing that Indiana Jones, Henry Jones Jr. was born in 1903.
Okay.
I kind of based that on like he was kind of in his 30s when he was like in Raiders and all that, and but he was already on track for 10 years. So, he's been teaching for a little bit.
Yeah.
So I would say in 1944, he was about 41 years old. He looked about 41 to me.
Give or take.
But I also think that they want, because they know the rest of the movie is going to be an 80-year-old octogenarian shit in his pants, and then like cleaning it up with his hat, that like we better show him as young as possible at the beginning, because this is it, folks. You want your young swashbuckling hero you had from the 80s? This is it. Now you're going to watch an old man complain about kids listening to their music too loud. And like, today's the moon landing parade. Moon landing? What the hell is that?
Who gives a fuck about the moon landing?
There's no caves on the moon. It's like, there might be.
There are probably caves on the moon. It's a crater-ridden rock in space.
Indiana Jones and like the moon adventure,
Hey, that's a better movie. But now here's my issue with this, with the digital de-aging. Okay, is it better than Rogue One? Yes, I will say that wholeheartedly. What I had a problem with was that it seemed like it worked when he was standing still, and then the minute he moved, it did not look good.
Motion blur is no one's friend, Brian.
I understand motion blur is no one's friend, but his face was changing as he was moving. It was kind of weird. It was kind of strange. It honestly reminded me of like those mid-journey motion graphics that you see nowadays, where you ask the computer, hey, generate this scene, and it doesn't understand that it wants one style, so it gives you like 50 styles over the course of 5 seconds. So it's like morphing over the course of time. And like that's what this reminded me of, was that when he stood still, like when they take the bag off his head, and you see him like, holy shit, they made Harrison Ford look young. And it actually looks good. And then the minute he got up and moved, I was like, oh God, oh no, that's not good. So
it was the horrible cricking of his knees and back that took me out of it. And him, no, I was kidding. That didn't happen.
But like that was my problem with it.
But not to get too bogged down in that. So I know that you don't necessarily agree with me that the whole train sequence didn't need to be 3.5 hours long, but to me, it felt like that. So here's my easy enough explanation. Mm-hmm. The movie starts, they pull a bag off his head, and they're like, Indiana Jones, you're a turd that won't flush. And he's like, you're Nazi pricks.
Flush.
And they're like, hey guys, take him up to the top of that bell tower and hang him. And they go, okay, boss, Sig Heil and all that good shit, And so they take him up there and they hang him. And then like the Americans come in and a fucking bomb lands, but it doesn't go off. And then it goes all the way to the bottom. Big explosion happens. Indy's like somehow survives and everyone else dies. And then he can't get the rope off his neck. And he finally gets the rope off his neck. And he goes down and he gets in a car. And then he gets on a motorcycle. And then he gets on the fucking train. Start him on the train.
But John, you need to have the mousetrap scenario right there. And when I'm talking about mousetrap scenario, I'm talking about the game Mousetrap. Look it up, kids. Back before video games, we played board games, and Mousetrap was one of them. And honestly, everything that you described is basically Mousetrap. Like from the giant bomb that falls from the sky, pierces the building, fails to explode, and slides down like a hole to the bottom and still doesn't explode until the very last second. Like that right there, I was just like, really? Come on. This is like cartoon at this point.
And the thing is, you can even if you didn't fix this in the script writing section or when you shoot it, you could fix this in ADR. It's like, Indiana Jones, you're a turd that won't flush. And he's, yeah, you're Nazi scum. And then he goes, we'll show you with the back of his head. He's like, put him on the train. And then just cut to a shot of him on the train.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, there, I just saved you 15 fucking minutes of this goddamn movie. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't hate it that much, but I mean, I definitely can see your point. And again, I go back to my point originally that when you don't want to explain what's going on and you don't want to give characters, I don't know, moments to breathe and talk, you bombard the audience with action sequences. That's it.
And I you know what? I love James, but James, you're no Steven Spielberg.
No, you're not.
You know,
clearly they hired him because of the fact that he knew how to direct a film with an aging character,
and he's pliable.
And he's pliable.
You got to be pliable for Disney. You'll do what I say in the end. You know.
Now we don't mean like pliable in the sense of the shunting scene from the classic movie from 1990, Society. That's a level of pliable that no one is. Half of our audience is like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Is my sister washing her butt on the front? But
it's a classic movie.
Yeah. But some people are like, what the fuck? But yeah, like the later scene where, you know, he's running through the parade and everything, and I'm like, if Steven Spielberg was doing this, there would be like such awe and splendor to this action sequence, and there's nothing wrong.
No, I actually didn't hate the parade scene that much.
But when he's like going through the subway with horses and stuff, like that felt like a video game to me. Like, avoid the trains on a horse. Like, you gotta like make sure you get to that hole right away, or else you and the horse are gonna be absolutely dismantled.
Here's the thing. I didn't hate that because I thought it was going to be way stupider from the trailers. Like, I really thought it was going to be way stupider. I thought that it again shows to me that James Mangold was trying to do a mousetrap scene, because that parade scene very much plays the exact same way that the opening scene does, where it's one little thing happens and then that builds another thing and another thing and another thing, and it gets bigger and bigger and grandiose and grandiose. The reason why I think that's successful is mainly because of the ending, right? The ending of that parade sequence is he gives the one guy the horse, gets on the train.
That was funny. My horse.
And turns to the woman next to him and has some like witty quip. And I'm like, that's why that scene works. Because
you know what
it's a relief.
Brian, you know what the lady should have said? She said, you shouldn't be on this train. And he goes, yeah, why not? And she goes, no ticket.
Yes. Yeah, that would have been good. But yeah, the parade scene I thought was for the most part pretty good. The car chase. What did you think of the car chase scene?
Oh, well, that's the thing about all these action sequences is that Harrison Ford is 80.
Yeah.
So like every action sequence, he can't be like swinging anymore, you know, or like jumping off of things,
or sitting.
Yeah. So he's got to, he has to drive automobiles, like, because he's old. Every action sequence is the same action sequence. I really thought when I was watching, like, this is kind of Fast and the Furious, because it's how many different automobiles can we have action car chases with? That's what this movie is. It's Fast and Furious AARP edition.
Yeah. Oh God. That's horrible. But you know what? Here's the funny thing. I didn't realize how many times Harrison Ford is driving in this movie. Or at the front of the car. Like in every other Indiana Jones movie, what has he always been doing? He's always like shooting the gun in the back, or, you know, doing some crazy shit while someone else is driving. No, he's driving in most of these.
Well, you know why I think that is? I think it's the audience that are the same age as Indiana Jones or Harrison Ford, is that like all old people are like, young people don't know how to drive. You young whippersnappers don't know how to drive stick. So the idea that like this time around, Indy's driving all the cars and doing it real well. It's like, yeah, because only we know how to drive. We're old. You know? You kids today checking your texty messages and your tickgrams while you're driving.
You kids
You don't
today
even-
with your working penises.
Yeah, you don't even know how to change your own oil. You communist. But so I think that was part of it. But
Probably.
Brian, I think I can just sum up the plot of this movie pretty quickly. Oh, this drive-by. So we get at the beginning of the movie, they get half of Archimedes' dial, and supposedly it's supposed to be able to travel through time if you have both pieces. At the beginning of the movie, we meet our main villain who dies. Accidentally gets a flesh wound. But no, he gets hit in the face at like 90 miles an hour.
Oh, he is totally dead. Like I don't care what anyone says. He should be fucking dead.
He doesn't even have a Band-Aid on his face later in the movie. He's just
there's
fine.
no scar. There's no nothing. He was fine. He just got knocked up. And that's why, I thought, I'm like, well, shit, he must have had something from the dial. Like, he must have had some sort of magical bullshit from that Nazi train. To
like he can already time travel to save himself?
Just to not be dead.
But, yeah, so... Indy has this adventure, and then we just meet him, and he's all old and disenfranchised, and his students don't give a crap about him anymore, and he's getting a divorce because his son is dead, and he didn't know how to emotionally handle it. And like I said, his students aren't listening, but he's retiring, so they're like, yeah, hey, you spent 10 years, that's good enough. Get the fuck out of here. You're old. Your students don't care about you anymore.
Plus, he's no longer in the big college. He's in city college now.
Yeah. And so he meets his goddaughter who he hasn't seen in years because there was another guy on the train who was going on adventures with Indy who became obsessed with the dial. And she's like, I think I know where to find the other half of the dial. And he goes, I'm old and I poop myself. I can't go on adventures. And she's like, Yahan. He goes, oh, okay.
That's all it took.
And then so basically then it's one set piece after another, looking for something, being chased by the bad guys, looking for something, being chased by the bad guys until the inevitable, conclusion of this movie. And I don't really think I'm missing anything there. It's
you're missing Phoebe Waller-Bridge's daddy issues.
Oh,
That's
yeah. And, okay.
She
and
got
all
real
these
bad daddy issues in this.
And all these trolls who everything I don't like, I'm going to call woke. It's I saw something online. It was an old picture of somebody from the 50s, an instruction manual on how to change your engine. And the comment was, this engine is broken. I hate it. It's woke.
What the fuck is that even mean?
And the thing is, this character, I'm sorry. I know that a lot of people just freak out on women characters because they're sexist, but this character is not a Mary Sue. She's horribly flawed.
She has a ton of flaws.
She's kind of a bad person who has to learn a lot through the movie. So, and for those people none of these women in movies want to have sex with men because you're just a bunch of ultra feminists in Hollywood. It's stupid. It's she's horny all the time. So she's horny and flawed. She's a character in a movie who just happens to be a woman. So maybe, check your sexist bullshit at the door.
I love that. I love that, John. Because honestly, I did not have a problem with her. I had no problem with her at all. For the very limited amount of time that the characters actually got to fucking talk, and not lead into an action scene, I liked what she brought to it, and I definitely liked her portrayal as the side character, if you will, the younger side character over Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Who was just kind of a whiny bitch the whole time.
Well, and the thing is that people are like, oh, they only put a woman in there because everyone has to be a woman or bisexual now. This is bullshit. If you think about the structure of the movies, Indy had two female sidekicks. I guess if you count Short Round too, but then it was okay, he's getting a little bit older, maybe kind of a search for his identity. Okay, so we bring his father in.
Yeah.
And then, okay, well, Sean Connery didn't want to come back, but probably he was going to be a side character anyway. So now it's his relationship with his son he didn't have.
Yeah.
If the side character, the young character, was another guy, it would automatically be connected to Shia LaBeouf, oh, he has another male companion. So it had to be a woman. So for all those people who are getting all up in arms because it's hard to be a white man anymore. It had to be a woman. So get over it.
Well, I don't even think it necessarily had to be a woman. I just think that I really didn't care.
Yeah, I didn't give a shit either.
It wasn't it wasn't like Rey Skywalker. Okay, it was not that. She did not have the answer to everything. Okay,
Yeah.
like she didn't like, aha, I know how to do this. And clearly she's gone through some shit that, again, the movie doesn't really tell us 100% what that shit is.
We get one flashback.
We get one flashback. We get a little bit of exposition. We know that she basically uses her knowledge for, personal gain. She's kind of the anti-Indy, if you will, at least in the beginning of this movie, because she's not really stealing the dial for any reason. She wants to steal it to fucking sell it, which is the opposite of Mr. It belongs in a museum.
Yeah.
So her arc is to get over that. And for the most part, she does. And she does reconcile, her issues she has with Indy. Because there's a scene, one of a holy handful, where she's like, yeah, you know what? I went through some shit. Where the fuck were you?
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of told me you were always going to like be there and, not.
And she, of course, because she's been through some shit, very jaded, hides a lot of that anger behind comedy, right? Behind being goofy. But ultimately, like, you can clearly tell that she's gone through some stuff. She has issues with Indy. She's really only using him for the ability to get the dial and sell it. And it turns into something where she really does reconcile with her father and her father issues towards the end of the movie. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't get the fuck people have with, oh my God, how dare a woman be the side character in this? And how dare she, actually have an arc? Like, who cares?
It's because they hate women and they can't have women in action movies.
But who the fuck cares? Like,
they're emotionally impotent incels, Brian.
I know that, but I'm just saying, like, there are so many people who are like, oh, well, it's all the Phoebe Waller-Bridge is crap. First of all, I like Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I love the series Fleabag. If you haven't seen it, check it out. She's
a very good actress.
She's a really good actress, really good writer, too. So, and I think she actually was involved in the writing of this to a point. Just double checking that, making sure that. No, she wasn't. I thought
maybe
for a
punch
minute
ups or something.
I thought she was, because I know she is a very talented writer. So I'm just saying, like, she added what was necessary to make this movie more than just bang, bang, whiz, whiz. Yeah. And there was nothing wrong with that. Where I think they kind of did fumble the ball a bit was having someone like Antonio Banderas in it for 5 seconds and then getting shot and dead.
Puss in Boots died.
Yeah. Like that was the one thing that I did have with this. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, we gotta get the movie going. So, don't care about characters that we introduced 5 minutes ago and their fate. Who cares? Because you get Antonio Banderas as, Indy's longtime friend who's
so happy to see him.
So happy to see him.
Played by a celebrity.
Paid by a celebrity. Bang, dead. See you later. Not going to talk about him ever again.
Well, I do like that she, like, after that whole scene, she's like all cocky and joking on the boat with like the little kid who we haven't even talked about because it's easy to forget he even was in the movie. But then Indy goes, him. But Indy's like, my friend just fucking died.
It's almost like he's talking to the director, like, why are we jumping to the next action scene? Yeah. My friend died.
But I think this whole movie is, okay, there's the first 20 minutes and the last 20 minutes, and then it's go to the next location to find the thing and do the thing and get caught by the bad guy. That's because, like, the scene you're talking about, they're like, oh, I think that, the dial is underwater. And then he's like, I know a guy who can help us spelunk. Mm-hmm. And let's go meet him. And then let's spelunk. And then let's find it. And then the bad guys show up and they kill the friend. And then they got to escape that guy. And then they escape. And then they realize oh, let's melt down the tablet. And the other part of the dial's in here. So now let's go to where we need to go to get to the cave. And then we'll have that set piece. And then the bad guys will show up. And not until we get to the last 20 minutes do we get to actually more plot. It's just point A to point B to point C.
Yeah.
And then point A, they get found by the bad guys. Point B, they get found by the bad guys. Point C, they get found by the bad guys. And you could almost just watch the first 20 and the last 20 minutes of this movie, and you almost kind of get the whole narrative.
Do you want to jump to the whole last 20 minutes of this thing? Because I know we talked a little bit about it.
let's do it. So,
Okay. I mean, I don't really want to talk about the fake short round that was in this movie.
okay, yeah. So let's before we get to the last 20 minutes, let's acknowledge
You
that.
do want to talk about fake short round?
I think because he's part of the end of this movie, we need to acknowledge that. Like,
damn.
so
Okay.
yeah, fake short round is Indy's goddaughter's like little
Short
friend who is short round. Same thing. Like I caught him picking my pocket, and then
It's literally the same thing.
yeah. So it's like, it's the exact same thing as Temple of Doom. They don't give this kid anything to do in the movie ever.
His arc is that he learns how to fly a plane for once
and swim
and
without
swim. Yes,
yeah,
without
even
dying.
though he shouldn't still be able to swim. But anyways, just because Indy was like, kick your feet and stroke or something like that, it's like, and he's like, oh, that's all it takes. Okay, great. Why did my parents have they take those swim lessons when I was 4? But yeah, so he's there, and at the end, like, all is lost, and the Nazis are like, we're gonna put our Nazi uniforms on. And Indy's like, what are you going to do? Go back to the end of the war and like convince Hitler not to kill himself? And he's like, nah, bro, I'm going to go back to 1936 and I'm going to kill Hitler because he did everything wrong. And I'm going to win the war. And I'm like, oh, that's fucking bold.
That got a pair on you, buddy.
Yeah. And they get in like an old German like warplane and they bring Indy along because he needs to be there. Because the movie's not over.
That is the dumbest thing ever to do, by the way.
Yeah.
This is seriously the dumbest thing. Let me take the one guy who has the most experience punching Nazis back to punch more Nazis. Like, I don't get that. Why would you not just kill him there? Like, I know that would end the movie, basically, but like, yeah.
I guess the cheap answer would be like, oh, so they can gloat. Ha ha ha. I don't know.
Haven't they always done that though? Like every time that a Nazi's captured him, they've always gloated, and it always blows them in their face. That's why he's the turd that won't flush.
Yeah. But so yeah, they bring him on the plane, and Indiana Jones realizes something like, science. There's such a thing as continental drift, and so they're not going back to 1936. They're going back to only God knows when. And this is where I thought, the movie's going to be sensible and do a Raiders ending, and we're not going to go back in time to like somewhere. Oh no, we're going to go back not just in time, but to where Archimedes was. So we're going back to Roman times, and they're attacking the plane because they think it's a dragon. They're like, the Romans have a dragon. And so they're and the Nazis are shooting people with machine guns back in like, what was it? I can't remember. Was it like 56 BC?
It was
something?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. So very long time ago.
Very long time ago.
And the plane crashes, and Indy was already shot.
Yeah.
And yeah, Ryan, like you said, there's a big vagina in the sky that had to fly through. And the little short round character.
I said butthole, and you immediately said vagina.
I had to Freudian it,
I know.
But the little short round character flies a plane. How? Because he said, I think they're neat. And so therefore he knows how to fly one.
Well, he had the one moment where he's playing airline pilot in the brothel / casino and talking to one of the airline pilots, and that's all the training
enough.
he has.
Yeah, that's enough.
That's all the training he has.
Because they need to have another. Need to have another plane because they're going to crash the main one, the Nazi plane, and but they ended up. All the Nazis die, and Indiana Jones is bleeding out. It's just like, let me absolutely destroy the space-time continuum and just stay here. And she's like, no, I don't think that's a really good idea. And he's like, dude, I just fart in my armchair and pass out from whiskey every night, and my wife hates me, and my kid got like fragged in the balls in Vietnam. Just let me fucking stay with Archimedes. And they're like, no, it's still not a good idea, dude. He's like, you're gonna die in a minute. And I thought for sure they were gonna leave him like.
I thought too. I was like, okay, I guess this is the end for him.
Because kind of like Indiana Jones belongs in the past, right? So he'll literally stay in the past. But then
for
she
about 5 minutes before he dies.
But then she like knocks him out, and then somehow gets a grown man onto another plane while people are trying to murder them, and then flies through a space portal, and then gets him somehow back to New York where he's wanted for murder. Must have got him into a hospital, then checked him out of a hospital, gotten back to New York where he's wanted for murder, put him in his bed, and put the dial next to him, and just hope that he woke up eventually.
John, when you explain it like that, it sounds like it's very convoluted. And maybe they rushed the ending a bit.
Maybe. And I said he's wanted for murder. So something we didn't mention because like we don't have
There's
to
a lot
explain
that
every
happens in this movie.
action sequence, every plot. Yeah, at one point, Indy's like the Nazis like track him down to the university because he has like the dial in the archives and they know he didn't get rid of it. And they end up killing like two of like a secretary and a professor. And so he's like covered in their blood and he goes to call for 911 and they're like, not so fast, Dr. Jones, and they end up like, he ends up being on a big part of a chase. He's wanted for murder.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to believe that he didn't do the murder. And he's just back in New York. So laissez-faire, like nothing, like he's back in his apartment. He's wanted for murder. Like the FBI and the police department should be scoping out his apartment. The second he was brought back to his place, he should have been put under arrest.
Yeah.
Especially
it's
a man.
It's like, first of all, how are you going to explain any of that? Like how are you going to explain like, well, this ex-Nazi doctor who ended up getting picked up by Project Paperclip, works for NASA, did a great job with the moon landing, but secretly wanted to get the Dial of Destiny to go back in time.
Time travel and kill Hitler.
Time travel and kill Hitler and run the Third Reich himself. And that's who really killed, my colleagues. It wasn't me. If you did that, you would be locked up in the crazy place. Like not in jail. You'd go to the psych ward.
Well, remember the last movie, he's being watched by the FBI.
Oh,
that
yeah.
never ended.
No.
So somehow he got teaching clearances on a university level while being a known communist threat to the FBI.
I find it hilarious that the one CIA officer had no idea who Indiana Jones was.
Yeah.
Like the one CIA officer, we didn't mention this, but again, this movie has a lot of characters. She gets picked off relatively early by, my favorite Nazi. And, she actually was like, oh, who is this Henry Jones Jr.? And it's like, are you seriously? You don't know who the fuck this is? Like, really? Like, you guys kept tabs last movie and everybody knows his war record. Like, does no one care? No one care about that anymore? Are you guys not following him anymore?
Yeah.
This is still like J. Edgar Hoover's FBI, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah. We're still hardcore into that shit,
Yeah.
But but then at the very end, Marion comes back and his goddaughter was like, I called her, and the thing you wouldn't do, and she's like, all you have is macaroni and cheese and scotch in this place, so I went shopping for you, and and they basically have like a tender moment together, and they blew the most obvious line of all time. So, after the whole, like, it doesn't hurt here, like, okay, that's sweet and tender. And she could have looked at him and said, this, I'm not saying it's impossible, but this is, fixing this is not going to be easy. And Indiana Jones could have said, we have all the time in the world.
Man,
I thought
John,
of that.
It's almost like you should have written the script. Yeah.
And
instead,
what do you think about
we got was, I don't know better, but whatever. It's a tilt-up shot of Indy grabbing his hat to bang Marion in the apartment.
Is that what you think about? Because I like the symbolism of the hat being hung out to dry. Like it's
that's
over.
what I thought. That's what I thought was you're gonna have some geriatric banging.
See, I thought it was
there.
that Disney just couldn't let the idea that the hat could be left out to dry, even though anybody logically would be like, Harrison Ford is 81 years old. It's like, well, we might want to make a sequel.
He's not
When?
doing
The man is in his 80s.
The man's not doing another one. I don't care who the hell you are. He's not. He's done. He's got to.
Maybe they figured they could CGI like an entire person. Well, I guess they did with Tarkin.
Well, we're getting to that point. Point.
So they want to be able to like pretend he's still alive. So you can get Indy in the 70s and be like,
disco. I hate disco.
No, but I looked at it as like he's grabbing that hat to consummate now his relationship again with his wife.
God forbid they leave it on a symbolic symbol,
No, can't do that.
It would have been from this director. Like, remember the end of like Logan, and spoilers for people who haven't seen that movie. They like put instead of a cross, they like turn it sideways so it's an X. It would have been like if suddenly like Wolverine's claws came up through the grave. It's like, okay, you just ruined it.
Well, you know what's funny? You mentioned that. So James Mangold is apparently not too happy that Hugh Jackman is reviving his Wolverine character for Deadpool 3.
But it's Deadpool. It's different. It's comedy. It's fourth wall. I don't have a problem with it.
I don't care because here's the reason why. When we talked about Logan and we said like, oh yeah, he's not really dead. We said that because no one had parked a truckload of money in front of Hugh Jackman's estate, and clearly Ryan Reynolds did. So more power to him. I know the set pictures that recently came out. He looks awesome in classic cartoon blue and yellow.
Yeah. I think he's supposed to look kind of ridiculous.
He is supposed to look kind of ridiculous, but like, Jesus Christ, I don't care. That's the Wolverine like that we all grew up with in the 90s. So it's nice to see that kind of into fruition. And I don't think it takes anything away from it because, these are comic book characters. And who cares? It's another interpretation of it. You don't think somebody else is going to play? And who cares if it's Hugh Jackman? Let's be honest here. Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. Like, can we all agree that like the man has played it more times than anyone could think of? And he's kind of hit it out of the park just about every time. Even in like the movie, X-Men Origins Wolverine, he was probably like the best part of that shitball. Yeah. So
can we acknowledge one last thing?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that, well, neither of us, and I don't care, dear listener, what your religious affiliation is, but neither Brian and I are religious in any way.
No.
But I would say that the first and third Indiana Jones movies are very Christian.
Very much.
And the first movie acknowledges that there absolutely is a God. And then the third movie, that Jesus Christ was the undeniable Son of God. And, and then this movie, Indy's like,
Yeah, I don't know what I believe, but I've seen some shit that I can't quite explain.
like, no, you clearly have undeniable proof of the Christian God. And you've also seen aliens, and now you've done like time travel. Like, he acts like, he saw tricks of light in his life.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm glad that the movies aren't overly Christian. Like, it's like he acknowledges every other like culture's things. That he's not like, you should believe in Jesus because I have proof that he is the one and only Son of God.
Well, but, I mean, who's to discount Kali Ma? I mean, that deity exists too. So there you go.
But just the things that Indiana Jones now has like proof of, and like, I don't know if I could prove that there was the one and only God, that aliens exist, and that time travel is possible. I mean, he just aloofly goes around on his life like he's seen nothing.
Well, you know why I think that they might have done that, John? And here's my thought process on it, is that I felt that this movie, out of all of the more recent movies that have basically tackled franchises that were popular decades ago, is probably the lightest when it comes to nostalgia bait and dropping Easter eggs 1,000 times over.
Yeah.
Like, you look at some movies that do the same sort of thing, and they're like every 5 minutes, hey, here's a wink wink to the last one. Here's a wink wink to one that was popular 10 years ago. I mean, Jesus Christ, we talked about The Flash. Do you know how many times we saw nostalgia bait shit in that movie?
Yeah.
But this one,
in the trailer alone, we didn't even need to see the movie.
But in this one, there was maybe one or two mentions of it?
And the one character who was like, Indy, I want to go on one more adventure. And he's like,
I can't. I wear diapers now.
Yeah. Like that sort of thing. But like, in terms of just overall, like, wink, nudge, hey, look what we got there for you. You want, like, it would have been funny if like you somehow saw Shankara stone just somewhere in Indy's apartment, or he's using it as a paperweight or some shit like that in his adjunct office or something. Like, those sorts of things, that's typically what a studio is going to do. But this one felt it was necessary not to do that. So, but you're right. It's kind of out of character for someone who's at the end of their journey, who's seen way more shit that is unexplained. And you're right, does prove that like gods do exist to some degree, and that magical shit's real. That, when he's talking about time travel, it's like, yeah, it doesn't exist. It does not. It's like, are you fucking kidding me, man?
You gotta prove it with science.
What do you mean you gotta prove it with fucking science? You opened an arc that literally melted people's faces off.
Well, he also
with
went
ghosts.
There was a Knights Templar who had been there for like 2,000 years, and then he drank out of a magic cup.
Yes, that was
healed his
apparently
wounds.
Jesus's cup.
Yeah, and it's like, explain that one, science, man.
And it saved your dad.
Yeah,
who was mortally wounded, and it made another Nazi immediately age and turn into a skeleton. Like, he has seen some fucking crazy ass shit that he just is like, I don't know what I believe. What do you mean you don't know what you believe? You broken down old man?
Well, speaking of, like, they took the arc from him, like he lost the cup, like he returned like the I can't remember what in Temple it did.
The Shankara stones.
Yeah, the stones. Yeah. Like in this one, he just, at the end of the movie, he just has a time traveling device next to his bedside.
Yep.
Did that man really have that power?
Well, I mean, to be fair, do we know if it actually time travels anywhere else other than back to Roman times?
Yeah, because the movie kind of hints at that, because when they find Archimedes' tomb, he's like wearing a wristwatch, and he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I did you think that was Indy in there? Because I thought it was. I thought for a minute
I didn't know what to make of that.
I thought the minute we saw him, like, oh fuck, Indy's dead in there. And so, like, when you got the scene where he's talking and he's saying he wants to stay there, I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna die, and they're gonna put him in the tomb with the thing, and that's him. He's gonna find his own body.
That would have actually been kind of cool.
And then especially because there's that scene where he says, "Give me back my father's watch," and you see the watch. I'm like, oh fuck. Yeah. He's looking at his dead body. Again, better writing, man.
Better movie. Yeah, but we don't know how much studio interference there was on this son of a bitch.
Probably a lot. Probably tons. $300 million worth.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a long one. John, what are your final thoughts on Dial of Destiny? Like, what would sum it all up?
Even though I kept an open mind, I still would have said, even if this movie was great, that it shouldn't have existed in the first place, just like the 2008 one. But it did fall apart. And I think at the end of the day, when you don't have the initial driving force of Lucas and Spielberg behind it in their prime with a young Harrison Ford, like, it's just, Disney, let it go, but they're not going to do it as long as there's money to be had. So as far as I'm concerned, even if this one was perfect from beginning to end, like, it ended with Last Crusade, just let it go. And I know they can't, because this is show business, not show art. Mm-hmm. But I just don't know if I needed to see elderly Indiana Jones, and and God only knows, maybe they'll convince Harrison Ford when he's 90 to come back, and he'll be at CBGB's in New York. Punkers,
I hate punkers.
Yeah.
But it's just it's sad. It makes me sad. I guess is the best way to put it.
You know what this makes me feel like? It makes me feel like when you find your old toy, like from when you were a kid, like your action figure that you played with over and over and over and over again, and you find it in like a box in your basement, and it's just worn the fuck out, broken, brittle. It's got the elements that have gotten to it, and now it's like starting to like crumble and fall apart. And it's like, yeah, you have the memories of that character, but you can't play with it ever again, not the way you used to, right? Mm-hmm. And that's
a good way to put it.
Kind of what Indiana Jones is in this one. I don't think this movie should have been made. I don't think it was needed. What I would have thought would have been a better allocation of resources and time, this is just me, is to have a younger actor, like this is a crazy concept here, folks, but maybe find someone who looks like Harrison Ford, who's younger, and make them Indiana Jones and place them in World War II. And you do I'm done. I've got this. And you do a Disney Plus series where it's Indiana Jones, younger, fighting Nazis in World War II. And maybe you have Harrison Ford at the beginning of it, kind of like the Young Indiana Jones series from the 90s.
Do something like that.
But something like that. Like
maybe 21-year-old Indy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, not even just that, but like, because that's going way far back. But I'm like saying you find someone who's, in their 40s, looks like Harrison Ford, and you make that person Indiana Jones, and you have a wraparound with Indiana kind of, in the beginning talking about, what it was like fighting Nazis. I think that would make more sense. And honestly, because you now have it as a series at that point, it gives you more time to develop the characters than one action scene after another.
And it'll be a quarter of the budget.
Damn right. So that's what I would think, because I think that the one thing that people wanted to see was Indy in World War II. Like, you wanted to see that because we never really saw that. You know, you saw him before, you saw him after, but that was it. And there's clearly a gap there. And, that was, I think, part of the reason why that opening thing was so long, is because they wanted to be like, well, see, you want to get Indy in World War II? Well, here you go. So I think it would have been interesting to see, how does Indy fit within the dynamics of working for basically what was the CIA at that time, and doing these covert ops, fighting the Nazis that way. That would have been interesting. That would have been something that would have been fun to see. And you even have like moments where Salah's talking about, this is the man who got us into America. Well, why can't we fucking see that shit? Right? That would have been a cool thing to put in the series. But again, they didn't do that. Like, they decided to go this route, spend way too much fucking money. And again, it's like you're playing with your broken down toy again, the same way you did when you were a kid, but the toy can't
It's falling apart.
It's falling apart. It can't do what it was doing before. So I really hope this is the last time. For me, it's always going to be the first three are the real movies. That's just
Brian, I think we're getting Indiana Jane. I think that like his goddaughter is going to be the new Indiana Jones.
Fine. Okay. Yeah. That's fine. I like the character in this one. But, and of course the trolls will be like, there, she stole Indy from us. Fuck you.
Indiana Jones should have a dick.
Okay. Go back to jerking off to Indy, asshole. So that's my thoughts on it, is that this movie was unnecessary. Was as bad as people made it out to be? No. It's turn your brain off cinema. The only part it gets beyond turn your brain off cinema is basically that last 20 minutes. Aside from that, it's, it's there. It's good parts, it's bad parts, but it's not as god awful as some people were making it out to be.
This would have made it the perfect movie, is when they were panning up past like the hat and stuff. If it said, Indiana Jones will be back, but Mutt won't because he's dead.
But Mutt won't because he's dead. Oh, fucking Shia LaBeouf, always the butt of all the jokes. But it was good talk. John. Yeah. Summer movies are going to be, hey, here's the thing. Summer movies are going to be very few and far between next year, I'll tell you that much, because there are no actors and writers anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But here's what I think is interesting about this year, Brian.
Yeah.
Like all the expected stuff, like Batman, Flash, same movie, but Indiana Jones. Yeah, all these tentpole movies that are supposed to like Transformers are supposed to hit like gangbusters are really not. But you know what I think are going to be two of the highest grossing movies of the summer? Then they open next week. Oppenheimer and Barbie. And I think it's going to be a duel for two of the highest grossing movies of the summer between a historical drama about men who created the atom bomb and a sardonic take on a toy. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely.
It's
love
not
it.
going to be Flash. It's not going to be Indiana Jones. It's going to be one of those two movies.
My money is on the Barbie movie.
I think it's going to do gangbusters.
I think they've already said it's sold out. Like people who've done advanced tickets, they're already sold out. Like that's the movie I think people are flocking to see, because the minute that trailer hit, and again we're getting off topic of Indiana Jones, but the minute that trailer hit, people
Hey,
realized,
Brian, if they've listened this long, they're in it for the end.
yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, the minute that trailer hit, where you realize like, oh God, this is not just like a little girl's movie, but it is looking at this in a very sardonic and dark comedy way. I think people were like, oh yeah, we're in, you know? So I'll be curious to see that. But yeah, next year, it's going to be very light pickings next year is all I'm saying, because yeah, not a whole lot going to be made now because a bunch of producers decided to be dickheads to, I don't know, the people who really make movies. So
Yeah.
that's an episode we should probably plan on doing, you know, talking about the writers,
The strike.
and strikes.
Yeah.
That's a good one, but that's for another episode. So, John, where can they find you at on the internets?
Over on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and coming soon to JW J-Dubs Video Nasty. I can't even name my own show. J-Dubs Video Nasties. Will finally be, because it was delayed for a lot of reasons, and then it got delayed because of the Tom Holland interview, will finally be my Dirty Harry video. So
Nice. You can find me at Brian Connington on the Twitters. I also run the Psycho Show page. Be sure to like us and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Psycho Show. We are also on the Threads. Got to make that mention there. The Facebook, Instagram, Threads. You know, the Twitter killer. That's what it is. We're on there.
Zuckerberg will not have Elon Musk's shit.
No, he won't. So we're on there. We're also on the TikToks. And I got to tell you, John, our TikToks are a booming. Okay? So
Keep it
let me
going, people.
yeah, seriously, people. You got to keep it going. Because honestly, man, like, we got like 435 followers on our TikTok, which is crazy because we literally do the bare minimum of video posting on there. Okay, half the time it's not John and I's face; it's literally a clip from the show with some strategically paced B-roll. But hey, you know what? People like it. It's 435 followers, so go follow us at Cinema Psycho Show on the TikToks. Join our Legion. Not Roman Legion, but just Legion. And of course, hang out with us on Discord. We still have a Discord channel. Link for it's in the description. And be sure to follow us, subscribe to us, listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. And we will see you next time.
Coming in 5 years, Indiana Jones and the Respirator of Rescue.
Dun, 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 dun,